Hello, hope you all are doing very well. I'm Daro Sai, and today I'm going to be walking you through how I process some of my drums for a track of mine. So earlier today I was going through some old projects, clearing some stuff up, and I found this one and I liked what I heard, and I noticed there wasn't much processing on the drums, really at all. So I thought, I might as well go through the whole process of me fixing up my drums. But okay, let's just go ahead and listen to it for a little bit. I'll turn off. I did a little bit of processing, but I'm gonna turn all this stuff off. Let's turn that off. All right, let's listen to it. So, this is kind of like a sort of like a stripped down tech house track, a little bit more minimal than traditional tech house. We'll skip a little bit. So the bass line is made with my Moog Minotaur. That's what that's coming from right here. It's got that fat sub bass. So you get the idea. We'll fast forward a little bit. We have this break over here with this lead synth coming from the Model D. This drop. Alright, so that's what we got so far. And so let's just walk through each of the drums first. So we have this closed hi-hat that's playing for pretty much the majority of the track. Starts from the intro, plays all the way through. It's just simple hi-hat pattern. I have an EQ, but literally there's nothing on there. Just a little bit of kickstart, which if you don't know, that is the sidechain plugin that actually doesn't use compression. It's actually just gain staging, so it's very clean and super easy to use, especially just want a simple pumping effect. Kickstart's the way to go. All right, so that came from my Electribe. I try to use as much analog, mainly because it's fun. Analog is just fun to use rather than in the box. All right. So next we got this 909 bus. So I like to bus some of my hats together. So this is actually coming from this 909, and this shaker is bussed into this, and it's being slightly compressed. Let's hear what that sounds like. So we have standard open hat 909. Grabbed this from Ableton. The only processing I did was just messing around with some of the macro controls that they already give you. So other than that, which I usually feel is pretty good because they have a low cut, which I mean, you don't really need for hat, like all this, like everything below 540. It's like you're not really hearing. Like if I put this on a spectrum analyzer, you could see that you can see your meat of your hi-hats kind of around the 6K, anywhere from like 1.8 to around 8K. So we can boost this, have this low cut just come in, take out some of the lows, the sub. We definitely don't need a sub bass, and that's being compressed with this hat, this shaker over here. And again, this is also, and this is an open hi-hat that seems to be pitched down, I believe. Actually, no. Actually, I just dragged in a shaker sample into the into what was originally this open hi-hat. So you still, what I like to do sometimes is just drag like a custom sample into here, and you still get the access of all these macro controls. So like the glue compressor, some of just the Ableton settings that sound pretty nice. So that's being compressed and bussed into this 909 bus. And it's just adding a little bit of compression here, tiny bit of makeup gain, really just to glue both those hats together, because you want them to work well and sound together, which is the whole point of bussing and gluing, is to get that togetherness. So let's keep moving down the track. Just another hat, just kind of accentuating the upbeat. Again, still no processing on here. A 909 ride, again, took that from the Ableton sounds. Put kickstart. This is what it sounds like without, kind of a little too, just, it kind of interferes with the kick a little bit and just, I don't know, it doesn't gel well, but that's what kickstart's kind of compressing it a bit, giving that pumping feeling. Also, I usually like to do this too. I have this ride, it's the same thing, just pitched down. It's really quiet, but it just kind of adds to the other ride. Gives it a little bit of bottom weight. I can probably actually bring that up a little bit. See here, without it. It's also panned to the other side. All right. So I also have this 909 that's also being bussed through this 909 bus right here. So I'm just essentially just stereo panning these hats. This 909. This is panned left and is about 5 semitones under this open hi-hat. So together they sound like this. Just pitching up or pitching down and duplicating your hats just adds more weight and just makes them fatter. So it's, especially with tech house, where the drums are very like up in your face and pretty loud comparatively to other dance music genres like techno or minimal techno and all that. You want your drums to take up the entire stereo spectrum. Alright, so now let's get on to the clap. Let's see what we got. This is also being bussed. It's a couple claps layered together. So here's the first one. This is a clap also coming from the ER1, the Elect Tribe. Same thing that these closed hi-hats came from. I mean, it sounds pretty good just by itself. Kind of sounds like an 808 clap almost, but it needs more weight to it. So we have this. Initially it's actually just playing with that clap, but I eventually layer it with this snare. This is kind of like just adding more tonality, since this snare is pitched. It's got a note to it. There's a resonant frequency in there, so it sounds nice to clap. And again, I panned this clap to the left, which, I mean, I could probably bring this back more to the center, because that's the main clap, and you want that to play well in mono. So bring that a little bit back to the center, just pan it a little bit to the left. I have this pan to the right, just to give it more stereo separation. And so these two are bussed into here. It's clap bus, where I've thrown the glue compressor on again. So with this glue, I have the attack set to what looks like 3. So it's not really biting the transient too much, which I think 3 is the equivalent to about like 10 milliseconds. I could probably bump this to 10 and reduce some of the makeup gain. And this is being parallel processed, which is what this dry wet knob is doing. Essentially, when you're bussing, at least when I do it, I like to have about half the dry signal and half the wet signal come through, because I still want the characteristics of the uncompressed snare and clap. But the glue compressor just brings out some of the unheard elements in each instrument. We got a perk. It's kind of weird. I don't even know where this is coming from, to be honest. It's some audio that I bounced. I can't remember where that's from. There's a little bit of compression to mainly nail out that huge transient right there, which, I mean, I was just lazy. I could have just gone in here, did that, brought down the gain, but I mean, we threw the compressor on there. Sometimes it's, you know, lazy days. And then that's turned off. All right, so let's go up here and we'll add some processing to the master bus, because I mean, in terms of individual processing with each instrument, it's not too complicated. And it'll make the video real long if I go into every single drum. I might save that for a different video, but for here I'll focus on the master bus processing. So I'll just remove all this except for all right, so we'll start clean here. All right, so the first thing I like to do is just throw on that glue compressor. That's honestly like sometimes I just have that loaded in the project by default, but it's just a good thing to have on pretty much always. Just a good thing to have on your master drum rack, really. You can't really go wrong with it, especially if you're parallel processing it, not screwing up your transients too much. So I set the attack to 30, really slow, I think that's actually 30 milliseconds, which would make sense. And bring the release down really quick, and I keep the ratio about 4, and then just slowly start pulling this threshold back. Let's hear it when all the drums are playing. Starting to compress a little bit here. I try not to go past 5 dB. Like 5 dB would be like it depends. Like obviously it's a case by case basis, but for this track it's like you don't want to compress it too much, or else you're just gonna sound like hot garbage. And then just make it up a little bit here, and then maybe even bring this range down. Like we don't need that shit back there. Alright, so that's sounding, let's see what that sounds like with and without. Alright, yeah, I'm liking that. So the next thing I go for is usually this API 550B. I've been using this a lot lately, and it's a Waves plugin that emulates the API console. It's just the API EQ. And so what I like to do is just bump 10K around 2 dB. You know, 10K may seem like it's, you know, pretty high frequency, but really it's not 10K. If you listen to it, it's really bumping more like around 5K. It's kind of misleading, to be honest. But this really adds a lot of sparkle to the drums. I can turn it on and off. Toggle this. Those hats just really like pop out. just to make it more meaty, give it that mid-range, because I don't know, I like mids. I hate it when it's just like a track is just kind of separated out. Like if you look on a spectrum analyzer where it's just a bunch of highs and just a bunch of lows, like sometimes that could be really like fatiguing on your ears in a club. I don't know, mids are just, they're pleasant. Something about them. So yeah, let's see. I'm gonna have to gain state just a little bit. Bring it down just a tad, 0.7 dB. And then we add another compressor just to get some of the really sharp transients out. It's really light. Just barely touching the compressor. But just having like really light compression like that, just to even out some of your transients, is nice. Just to at the end, at the mastering stage, you'll be able to get it louder. You'll be clipping less. It's just good to do that now. Alright, let's see. So that's starting to sound pretty good so far. I think we need to throw on an EQ. We should probably actually, we'll put the EQ before the compressor. We don't really need the sub bass in the drums. Take that out. And let's see, let's scan the frequency spectrum and identify some harsh frequencies. That's what I like to do sometimes, just to eliminate, like, okay, we'll eliminate some harsh frequencies. So we're gonna solo this band. Let's just solo the drums. We can just kind of sweep. Usually they really stand out. Let's see. Oh. I think we're at about 6K. It's pretty, it's like kind of ringing. It's pretty dissonant. So we're just gonna bump that down just a tiny bit till 3 dB. Bump that way when we're boosting here, we're not boosting up those resonant frequencies. Let's look at how these drums look like in the spectrum analyzer. I like to use Voxengo because it's free and it just does a good job of showing you where your frequencies are. AKA spectrum analyzer. We could probably boost up a little bit of this. These frequencies seem kind of low. Okay, so next I'm gonna pull up Voxengo just to see where all the levels are at, see the RMS, where it's peaking, and just look at the overall frequency spectrum of my drums. So we got this low cut, we don't have any of the sub bass. That's good. We're peaking at about -8, about approximately -8, which is pretty good. We can actually probably bump up the drums a little bit louder if we wanted to, depending on how loud our kick is. Obviously, that's more in the gain staging process. We'll eventually when you're mixing, you'll get to that. But for now, it's kind of let's see if we can add anything else. Oh yeah, let's see what we can add. A saturator. That's something I like to do. Just a very light saturation. I like Isotope Trash. It's not my favorite plugin. I know there's better ones out there, but it does the job most of the time. So throw some tape saturation on there. Bring the mix down to like 10%. 25%, and then reduce the gain a little bit. This adds a lot of gain, so we want to reduce that. Where are we peaking? About negatives, about same, a little bit less. We're at negative 6.5. We increased the gain a little bit, but that's okay. We got some headroom. That is for sure. We got quite a lot of headroom. Probably just skip this up though, just because that added gain, so we don't want to be compressing too much on the last part of the chain. Yeah, that's about it. It's a little kind of walkthrough of how I do some of my drum processing. You know, there's a lot more to it, but that's some stuff I'll cover in some other videos. Yeah, just if you like what you saw, like what you heard, just support me. Look at my SoundCloud, post some jam videos on Insta. And yeah, peace out. Hope you enjoyed.
What I'm saying? I'm tripping over time.